Clear prop. Welcome to Terminal Talk Radio. This is our second episode. This is Steve here.
I'm Mike.
We're excited to put out another episode for you. We have a lot to cover, so we're going to dive right in. First off, we wanted to break down something we kind of talked about last episode about our website. We wanted to break it down a little bit further and talk about flight training and the different kinds of training available to you. As we go through this, just understand that there's no wrong way to do it, but these different ways might have a little bit of pros and cons that might fit your situation a little bit better. So we wanted to go into a little bit more detail on that to help you decide which way would be the best to handle your flight training and get things started.
Exactly. So what we're going to jump into here is the approach and specifically touch upon 141 training as opposed to 61 training. So like Steve said, there isn't a right or a wrong way to approach your training. You just kind of have to figure out what best fits your needs. When it comes to 141 training, it's going to be highly structured. There generally tends to be an emphasis on the ground training aspect, and so as you're training, it's crucial that you hit everything in order, in an ABC manner, if you will. It's a lot of times going to be associated with university programs just due to the amount of classwork that needs to be done. And if you're the type of person that learns well in a classroom setting, this may be the approach that may interest you more. Steve, do you want to maybe touch base on 61?
Right, yeah. So Part 61 training is the more basic or generic form of flight training. If you head out to your local airport, ask for flight instruction, that's what they're probably going to offer you. Now, the Part 61 or 141, what that's referring to is the regulation that is required to be followed during that training. So with Part 61, there's not going to be as many hoops to jump through. It gives you a little bit more flexibility, but the trade-off is that the requirements are a little bit higher as far as flight time. The 141, like mentioned, requires a bit more ground school, so they compensate that flight time for a little less flight experience. But that's kind of the trade-off there. Now, the big pull between the two is the 141 school. It's going to take a little bit longer because you're going to be doing the coursework alongside it. And the trade-off there is the FAA figures that throughout all that ground instruction time, you could qualify for a restricted ATP with 1,000 hours versus a regular ATP, which would be 1,500 hours of flight time, which is the airline transport pilot license. So as you're getting further on in your training, that's really the thing you should consider between the two training programs. What your goal is. If you're working on an aviation degree, it might be a good idea for you to do the Part 141 training where you can get the reduced ATP. However, if you're not working on a degree program, the degree is part of the requirement to get the restricted ATP at 1,000 hours. So if you don't have an aviation degree, a 4-year degree, then it definitely will be probably a faster way to the airlines to do a Part 61 program where you can just get right to the 1,500 hours and not have to worry about spending years and years in school alongside it. But it really just, again, depends on where you're at and what your goals are, where you want to end up and how you want to get there. If you're already doing a college program, it might be a good idea to do the 141 where you can get that restricted ATP at 1,000 hours and make it that much faster instead of having to do another 500 hours. But I hope that kind of makes sense as you're debating on which way to go. The two different avenues there kind of give you something to think about. And as you have more questions and concerns about it, please research it, reach out to us if you need clarification. But those are kind of the two ways to go for flight training.
And just to kind of add in there, another great reference, if you happen to be on the approach page, there's a great breakdown of some frequently used terminology associated with these types of training. So check out those as well if you need any clarification. That should help. But like Steve said, if you need to, just hit us up and we can help clarify it, via email if need be.
Mm-hmm.
Another area that I think we didn't really touch too much upon in the last episode was the pilot supplies. We have a great pilot shop to also accommodate your needs for your training, whether you're going 61 or 141. something that I'm kind of interested in is the headsets. So there's a pretty wide range and variety of headset that you can use. Whether it be a basic one, maybe a medium, if you will, type headset like a David Clark, or then top of the line, a Bose, which you're gonna shell out a decent amount of money, maybe $1,000 or more. But we have all of these styles to best suit your needs, and to go along with that, it's not just the headset. So we've got it broken down into our kits, and with each kit, you're also going to receive a plotter, an E6B, logbook, FAR aim, knee board, even a headset bag, a lot of the essentials that you need for training. And back kind of to first episode, we're trying to keep things simple here and get you all the necessities. We're not trying to bog you down with any unnecessary information or material, which kind of leads into some great resources from the FAA. Steve, you want to
Definitely.
base on this?
There are some great materials out there for free through the FAA that you can access online. You can also get them in paper format, if you want to buy the books. But in our packages or the kits that we have set up, we get you all the materials you'll need. And we want to, make sure you're aware that there are plenty of, resources out there from the FAA that you can access for free online through the FAA's library to get a good deal of information. The ones to look out for that we would recommend checking out, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. That's available for free online in a PDF format. The Airplane Flying Handbook, the Airman Information Manual. That is included in the FAR aim that we give you. But anyway, jump into those online. The more you study before you start your flight training, the better prepared you will be for your flight training, and the more efficient and effective you'll be throughout your course. So definitely make sure to put in as much as you can ahead of time, just to make sure that when you're out there putting down a lot of money in your flight training, you're being efficient with it and able to progress through your training quickly. So hopefully our goal here is to help you at every point. So by getting the starter kit coupled with those resources from the FAA's website, you're going to be all set to go and well prepared for your training to make it a quick and effective process versus coming in unprepared, buying this and that, spending more money on materials, but then also not progressing through your program or your training as smooth as you could, spending more money out there in the airplane. So we're trying to help this to make it as efficient as you can to help you out along the way in your training. So definitely look out for those free resources from the FAA, and you can check out other training programs as well, but that way you're at least getting what you need, and it's for free to get you started.
Definitely. And now, kind of moving into a different segment of the episode, want to get into some current aviation events. The most recent one being pretty catastrophic, and that would be the power outage at the Atlanta airport. For those of you who may not know, Atlanta is the base for Delta, so it's putting a major damper right now in scheduling, resources, money. Just it's a big event.
It is. It's catastrophic. And Atlanta airport right now has a pretty big impact on the system. With Delta flying international domestic routes from all over the place, we have people trying to get out and come into Atlanta airport. And without power, that really does set things back. Yeah, okay, as far as safety right now, that's not a big deal. I'm sure they have generators for the control tower and everything. That's great. But what's happening behind the scenes is at the terminals, we don't have power. At the conveyor belts, at the baggage claim, everything doesn't have power. So people are not moving. Right. And that poses a big problem for Delta, because they have people in the system right now that need to get somewhere, whether they're stuck on the tarmac in their airplane still, stuck in the terminal waiting for their flight. Right. Or people that are scheduled to leave. This has been they're getting back on it now, but hours and hours without power, that's going to make a huge backlog. Canceling thousands of people's flights. This is going to have big impact of events now, but it's going to continue on as we're leading into this busy week here as we approach Christmas.
Right, exactly. I mean, this isn't just a few hours and we're back on schedule type event. I mean, this is days, if not weeks, before we're back on schedule. And like Steve said, the holidays here, they're certainly not helping them in terms of timing. But I mean, just imagine, it's not just the pilots, it's not just the people traveling on the airlines, it's the flight attendants, the rampers, the crew schedulers. I mean, those poor crew schedulers, I mean, they're probably coming up with new schedules, I'd say by the minute. I mean, you don't know. I mean, when power's coming back on, I mean, they're talking maybe midnight at best. I mean, it's hard to say, and you constantly have to be flexible. That's pretty much aviation in general, in terms of being flexible with weather and whatnot. But I think one of the most devastating things, at least if you're a passenger and even an employee of the airline, it's very frustrating that it had nothing to do with weather. It had nothing to do with a glitch in the computer system at the airline. It's literally just a power plant company and the utility system just completely failing. So it'll be interesting to see how Delta handles this. And it's not just going to be Delta, like Steve said. It's any airline that has aircraft out of there. I mean, they're all going to be affected whether you realize it or not, just because they have flights going in and out of there as well. And now all of the passengers, let's say, majority being Delta, obviously, I mean, they're going to have to find flights someplace else. So where are they going to go? To the competitors, and that's going to delay their flights as well. So it'll be interesting to see how everything shakes out, and the potential financial losses that we see. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few lawsuits for maybe the city and the power company. But yes, it's the impact on aviation is it's so significant, and it's just crazy to think how it could affect everyone's daily lives without them even realizing it.
Yeah, exactly. Think about this. Think of someone else, flying from an airport that's not even connected with Atlanta. The thing is your plane might be coming from Atlanta or have some kind of connections beforehand, so it just ripples down the line. So we're going to be seeing delays or backlog through many different airports, many different airlines. It's going to be big, and it's really going to frustrate the system. So it's and like Mike was saying, this is a very unique situation. It's not an airplane down for maintenance. It's not an airline computer system. It's really the city utility. So it's affecting a whole lot of different people in a whole lot of different ways than we're used to seeing. But
I think too, just to also kind of get this point in as well, I think it's a major learning lesson. I think a lot will come from this moving into the future, on the type of power and utility stations that airports need to have, because it's an industry that's not going away, and it's only getting bigger. So I think there has to be more of an emphasis on the utility supplies that they're currently receiving, and I think airports moving forward into the future are going to have some changes due to this.
Definitely, and the airlines are definitely going to be looking into this to make sure they avoid problems like this in the future, making sure that precautions are put in place ahead of time to ensure that glitches like this don't affect them or don't have lasting impacts like from what we're learning from today. So definitely something interesting today in the news, something we kind of wanted to talk about, as it's a pretty unique situation, and hopefully they can get everything back on track and have a minimal impact as possible, even though it still is, like we've been talking about, going to be pretty substantial either way.
Definitely. But another thing I just wanted to point out, we're not only on Twitter now and Instagram and Facebook, we also now have the YouTube channel, so check that out if you haven't already, along with iTunes. So hit us up there, download the podcast, listen, subscribe. Again, we love hearing the feedback. Send us your questions, comments, concerns at info@flighttrainingterminal.com, and Yeah, no, we'll try and address those in the next episode if we can.
Definitely, yeah. We love hearing back from you guys. We want to know what you want to hear about, what's kind of going on, and we'll be happy to cover that material as we can and help everyone out here. But that's gonna finish us up for today's show. We appreciate y'all listening, and we'll look forward to talking to you guys soon.